Hey everybody, how's it going? So it's pretty interesting to see that Right to Repair is actually starting to make it to the New York Times. One thing I'm actually happy about here is that in several of the New York Times articles I've seen recently about Right to Repair, my name is never mentioned. I like this. This is a good thing. This is positive. It means that this is a movement that is not being led by an individual, but is being led by a set of founding principles and a philosophy, which is what makes for sustainable movements. Movements led by people fail. Movements led by sustainable principles and philosophies succeed. So let's read this article and just go over it with you all. So this is from Brian Chen on July 14th. It says, when your car has problems, your instinct is probably to take it to a mechanic. But when something goes wrong with your smartphone, say a shattered screen or a depleted battery, you may wonder, is it time to buy a new one? That's because even as our consumer electronics have become as vital as our cars, the idea of tech repair still hasn't been sewn into our collective consciousness. And that is correct. One of the things I talk about here is that we used to have a different mentality back 100 or 50 years ago, and as new products have come out, we are now adjusting to the new mentality of we can't fix it. It's not safe. What if it's bad for the brand's reputation if something gets fixed and it's not perfect? Oh. Studies have shown that when tech products begin to fail, most people are inclined to buy new things rather than fix their old ones. Repair is inconvenient and difficult, so people don't seek it, said Nathan Proctor, a director for the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, a consumer advocacy organization who's working on legislation to make tech repair more accessible. Because people don't expect to repair things, they replace things when by far the most logical thing to do is to repair it. It doesn't have to be this way. More of us could maintain our tech products as we do with cars, if it were more practical to do so. If we all had more access to the parts, instructions, and tools to revive products, repairs would become simpler and less expensive. This premise is at the heart of the Right to Repair Act, a proposed piece of legislation that activists and tech companies have fought over for nearly a decade. Recently, the Right to Repair supporters scored two major wins. In May, the Federal Trade Commission published a report explaining how tech companies were harming competition by restricting repairs. And last Friday, President Biden issued an executive order that included a directive for the FTC to place limits on how tech manufacturers could restrict repairs. The report from the FTC was indeed a win. As I went over in one of my videos, they went over all of the anti-right to repair points like security, data, safety, and said outright there's just no evidence for any of these, which is the FTC's polite and kind way of calling the manufacturers bullshitters, which was pretty nice. The FTC is set to meet next week to discuss new policies about electronics repair. Here's what you need to know about the fight over your right to fix your gadgets. What is the Right to Repair Act? The legislation, which was previously proposed in about 24 states and is now being discussed on a federal level, would require tech and appliance manufacturers to provide the tools, instructions, and parts necessary for anyone to fix their smartphones, tablets, computers, and refrigerators, as well as other products. This would be a major shift. Tech companies currently provide service tools and parts only to a network of officially approved partners, including big brands with service centers like Best Buy and some independent repair shops. This is actually I give this 50% true. The reason I say 50% true is because if you actually become authorized by any of these manufacturers, you could still not have access to what you need to do your job. And this is something that I spelled out in an older video of mine that any of you can listen to over here. What does authorized repair do? Let's find out. In this video, what I did was I called a bunch of authorized service centers to ask how to do basic repairs. My headphone jack is not working, or this is not starting up. And they not only did they not know that the headphone jack was on its own part and not integrated into the motherboard, but they said it doesn't even matter if that's the case because I can't get it from the manufacturer. And I went over in several of my videos here on how some of the manufacturers' repair programs don't allow you to get access to charging ports, headphone jacks, schematics, diagrams, and virtually anything that people like me need to be able to fix your products. Much less anything like a charging chip or anything like that. Even if you are authorized, you get access to virtually nothing, which is why many choose to not become authorized. But I think that's a really important point to point out before we continue. These official partners typically follow strict rules, which includes using genuine parts bought directly from the manufacturer. So cost to the customer may be higher than repairs done by unauthorized repair centers. By making resources broadly available, the unofficial repair centers could more easily compete to drive costs down. And that would make a repair a more compelling option than buying a new gadget. Why should I care? Tech products are among our most expensive household purchases, and their prices keep climbing. Not long ago, the price of a high-end smartphone was $650. Today, new Apple and Samsung phones start at $700 and $800. The average household would save $330 a year if it repaired products rather than replacing them, which adds up to $40 billion nationwide, according to a study by the U.S. Public Interest Research Group. By prolonging the life of your gadgets, you would also put more use into the energy, metals, plastics, and human labor invested in creating the product. Why don't more people repair their tech? There are several barriers to repairing consumer electronics that can make it intimidating. Basic repairs like replacing a shattered screen or a depleted battery are not simple. Modern gadgets are so thin and tightly glued together that special tools are usually needed to pry them open. By the way, a lot of these tools that are needed to pry them open are easily available online. When we say that we would like the manufacturer to provide tools, I'm only speaking about cases where in order to do the repair, you need a proprietary manufacturer tool to do so. So for instance, in T2 chip MacBook Pros, even if I actually replace certain items on this, technically, according to Apple's guidelines, the repair is not completed until I use Apple's proprietary software or their own proprietary tools to pair the new part to the device. Well, that means that it's not like there's a special screwdriver or something that I need where I could just go to KC Tool Co. and buy it. I have no problem doing that. We're talking about specific tools that were designed by the manufacturer to ensure that you can't do the repair yourself unless the manufacturer gives you the go-ahead. Those are the types of tools that I talk about when I talk about providing tools as a part of right to repair. When it comes to tightly thin together stuff, I mean, a lot of the times I see people on YouTube using dental floss to remove batteries, and it's a pain in the ass, but it's most certainly not something that you need a regulation to get made available. When we speak about tools being made available, we are talking about the specific proprietary tools designed by the manufacturer to make it difficult or impossible for you to be able to do the repair yourself, because the device may actually reject the new part you put in without this tool. It's also not straightforward to buy genuine parts. You can't just go to Apple or Samsung's website to order a replacement screen or battery, for example. Fixing basic components is also becoming increasingly impractical for unauthorized repair shops, especially with Apple phones. Many important parts inside newer iPhones, including cameras, batteries, and screens, require proprietary software tools to finish the job, independent fixer said. Going to the Apple and Microsoft retail stores and authorized repair shops is a simple option, but the cost there can be so high that you might be persuaded just to buy a new device. When I took my wife's iPhone to an Apple store this year, I was quoted $280 to replace a broken touchscreen, about 40% the price of a brand new phone. I turned to another route instead. Why won't unauthorized fixtures become authorized? Of the most pushback in this article. Independent fixers get access to tools, parts, and instructions for repairs when they enroll in partnership with tech companies to become authorized service centers. Untrue. 110% untrue. Fact check false. When you become enrolled in a partnership to become an authorized service center, you cannot get those parts. And this is something that I have gone over many, many times in this video. If you listen to this video from 1 minute and 50 seconds, you will hear him say that he cannot get access to a charge port. This is something that you could get access to on eBay, mobile centrics, virtually everywhere. Obviously not with the blessing of the manufacturer, but the manufacturer will not make that part available to their own authorized service centers. The charge port on your phone, the most common thing to fail in most people's phones, which is either the charger or the headphone jack, is something that's not made available. If I want to be able to do a repair that requires a charging chip, I'm not able to get access to that either. This is something that I have explained in this video over here. $3,000 laptop turned into a paperweight due to this chip unavailability. And when you search online, you can see that this chip is not made available anywhere, and the reason is that the Apple tells the manufacturer not to make it available to anyone. Even if you were an authorized repair center, you would never be able to get access to this chip. You can be Apple authorized, or you could be a member of the IRP program, or you could be working at the Genius Bar. These are not repairs that you can do if you're authorized. You cannot get access to the board schematic. You cannot get access to a board view. You cannot get access to chips. You cannot get access to charging ports. These are parts that are restricted even if you enter their programs. And it is very important to get this point across, because many people think that we are pushing for legislation that's unnecessary. Why don't you just get authorized? You just don't want to get authorized. When the reality is, if I became authorized, I would go out of business instantly, because I wouldn't be allowed to do any of the repairs that customers ask me to do and that customers expect me to be able to do. If a customer comes into my store and their device is not charging, they expect for me to be able to fix the charging issue. They do not expect me to tell them you need to mail it back to the manufacturer, pay half the cost of a new one to get a refurbished model. Kyle Wiens, chief executive of iFixit, which publishes free instruction manuals for people to restore their gadgets, said many independent fixers were turned off by the contractual terms to become authorized. incorrect. One requirement to be an Apple Authorized Repair Center involves collecting detailed service record, including customer names, product serial numbers, and mailing addresses. This is something I went over in this video. Apple wants your data. I'm not giving it to them. If a customer does not want me to submit all of the information about their product to the manufacturer, I respect that. It's not Apple's business what the names and home addresses and phone numbers are of a customer, and it's not their business if they got something fixed with me outside of Apple. If someone wants that to be submitted, that's one thing, but it's just not their business, and it's not my place to collect that information from customers if they do not wish it to be collected and then submitted to the manufacturer. This information must be provided to Apple in the event of an audit to verify the repairs are being done properly. Even if a repair provider terminates its agreement with Apple, it must agree to continue to share this information with the company for 2 years. There's also the issue of price. Shakil Taib, I strongly apologize for mispronouncing your name, an independent fixer in South San Francisco, said he charged lower prices to customers because he obtained authentic parts from channels such as electronics refurbishers who extract working components from defective gadgets. He charged me $180 to fix my wife's iPhone screen, undercutting Apple Store by $100. This is another one. So if I were able to actually knock on LG's door and be able to get access to screens and parts like that by being Apple authorized, I'd do it. I remember back in the day, I used to be able to buy an A1466 LCD cell only for $72. When you break the screen, when you hit the screen and it cracks, typically you've broken the front layer. What Apple does is they will only sell you the entire display assembly. That has the metal backing, the Apple logo, the webcam, the hinges. It's like, I don't need all of this. I just need the screen. I don't want to pay $450. That's right, $450 for the part by itself. I mean, for the entire assembly, when all I need is the $72 part. Further, my customer, who may have spent $799 on this computer, does not want me to charge them $450 part by itself without labor to replace all of this stuff when they need something much less than that. So it lowers your options in order to be able to actually buy what you need to do the job. It's not always about not buying original parts, because what I'm putting in your MacBook Air is the same screen that Apple's putting in there. Apple puts in an LP133 WP1 TJAA, and I'm putting in an LP133 WP1 TJAA. It's the exact same screen. The difference is when you go to Apple, they're going to replace the LP133 WP1 TJAA, they're going to replace the webcam, they're going to replace the hinges, they're going to replace the bezel, they're going to replace the display assembly, whereas I'm just going to replace what's broken. And the ability to only replace what's broken rather than replace everything attached to what's broken allows us to offer a more competitive price while using original parts. I would love to be able to deal with LG or LG's brokers on a more legitimate basis than what we have now, but that's not an option if you become authorized. Apple declined to comment. A spokesperson referred to a news release that said there are 1,500 authorized independent repair centers across the United States, Canada, and Europe. 1,500 authorized centers, 1,500 places where if you have a broken charge port on your iPhone 6, they tell you to get a new phone. Why are tech giants opposed to a right to repair? Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google have contributed to lobbying efforts against the Right to Repair Act. The most common argument is security. The idea that people with access to repair and diagnostics tools could perform illegitimate repairs and steal people's data, which, to this date, the only front page news articles I've seen on this actually deal with the manufacturer, where there was an individual that was taking information off of someone's iPhone and then posting that information here to Facebook. So this is the thing this is one of those things in politics that I've talked about before, where what you do is you accuse your adversary of what you yourself are doing so that it deflects from the fact that these data leaks are often occurring from the manufacturer's authorized repair centers. If you're not able to keep your own authorized repair centers from stealing people's data, then how do you get to say that you care about people's data being stolen and that's why other people shouldn't be able to fix their products? It's ridiculous. TechNet, a trade group that represents Apple, Google, and Amazon and others, said opening up repair could put consumers in harm's way. Allowing unvetted third parties with access to sensitive diagnostic information, software, tools, and parts would jeopardize the safety of consumers' devices and put consumers at risk for fraud. Carl Holzhauser, a TechNet executive, said in a statement. But in its report, the FTC concluded that there was scant evidence to support manufacturers' justifications for repair restrictions. What he said is something that is not supported by the facts. He'll never bring up specific examples of this being an issue because he can't. This is just it's just a basic boilerplate template quote of misinformation to fearmonger legislators. And what I ask when I speak to legislators is, did they give you a specific example to demonstrate how this is correct? And they never do because they don't have any. They're making it up, and they always have been. Why is it easier to service a car? When your car breaks down, you can take it to a dealership service center or potentially get more affordable service at an independent mechanic. Broadly speaking, cars are more customizable with aftermarket parts, and basic maintenance and repair jobs like changing the oil or replacing a cracked windshield don't require special software. In 2012, Massachusetts enacted a right to repair law for automobiles, and automakers agreed to adopt the requirements of the law nationwide. After cars evolved to rely more heavily on computers, the legislation helped make special tools and instructions broadly available to independent mechanics for repairs. When your car breaks down, you know exactly what to do, Mr. Proctor said. You find a mechanic, you pay, and it's back. If you don't like your mechanic, you find another one, or you could go to the dealer if you want. In other words, buying a new car is the last resort, and buying a new phone could become one too. I like the fact that this is starting to receive more mainstream attention. And again, I'm happy with the fact that this is actually getting attention in papers like the New York Times without my name being mentioned once. Because again, as I said, for this movement to really move forward, it needs to be a movement that is based on philosophies and principles and not one dude sitting in his armchair with a cat all the time. And I like that. I do hope that as this moves forward, that this specific point, which I think is the most important point of them all, which is even if you become authorized, you can't get access to what you need to fix anything, needs to be brought to the forefront. I don't think that that point is being promoted as much as it should. I don't think that I've explained it as well as I should. I think that if you go to this video that I had done a while back, that it really does bring the point across. What does authorized repair do? Let's find out. Again, this is a 48-minute long video. A lot of people don't have time to listen to a 48-minute long video, but if there's a way that I could get across in a quick sound bite inside of like a 30-second infomercial, that when you go to an authorized repair center, or if you become an authorized repair center, you still can't get access to anything you actually need to fix anything. You're mostly a mailing depot. I think that we'd be much more effective at pushing right to repair forward, because right now it seems like, well, why don't you just become authorized? They just want to be able to do things cheaper, or they just don't. They just want to go under the radar. When the reality is, even if it costs $10,000 to get authorized, I'd pay it and I'd be there immediately. The reason that I don't become authorized is because I'm not going to be able to buy a CD3217 or an ISL 9240 or an LP123WP1 TJA or an LP123WQ1 TJEV or any of the things that I actually need to be able to offer the repairs that my customers want and expect of me. And that is a serious problem. You cannot call a repair center an authorized repair shop. You cannot call that repair in any way, shape, or form. If when you show up with a phone that has a modular charge port, again, when it comes to the iPhone, they don't even solder the charge port to the board. It's modular. You take out a few screws and it literally just pops right out. If you don't consider that to be a part that is serviceable at an authorized repair center, you cannot call that repair. That is authorized mailing depot to replace your device with a refurbished one. And I think this point needs to be mentioned a bit more, but it needs to be mentioned in a way that it actually gets across to people better than me talking for 48 minutes in a video where I call the manufacturer to figure out what authorized repair actually is. And if any of you are open to helping me achieve that, by all means say something in the comments down below. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. And again, thank you to the people at the New York Times for giving this issue attention. I really appreciate it, and I hope that they do more of this in the future, and I hope more mainstream media outlets give this issue attention in the future. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.